to a credible news organization? I mean, why is he talking to you and not talking to?
You're saying it's not credible to call me Lulu?
I'm saying it's totally credible, but as you said, you're his friend. But I mean, but I think there's what I'm hearing from Governor Beshear, and I'm just wondering how you view that. Is, why isn't he calling in to even one that he would consider friendly, like Fox News? I mean, I guess that's the prevailing question that,
or put out a video.
The doctors tell me I don't have any life-threatening issues. It must seem rather strange. So yeah, I got the feeling he's somewhat aware of it, and frankly, somewhat frustrated by it.
Is he? You always say he's still doing the work, of the senator. I mean, is he taking calls from constituents? Is he having constituents come to meet with them? I mean, because he hasn't voted since June.
Yeah, I know he's had several meetings with different kinds of people.
Welcome to Ivik's Breakdown. In today's video, Scott Jennings comes under serious pressure during a tense discussion on CNN's The Arena over Senator Mitch McConnell's extended absence from the Senate following his hospitalization and rehabilitation. The issue isn't about exposing McConnell's private medical information. He remains a sitting United State Senator, and when an elected official is away from public duties for weeks, it is reasonable for voters and journalists to ask whether he is still capable of carrying out his responsibilities. So, let's examine how the CNN panel challenged Scott Jennings and why McConnell's absence has sparked a much bigger debate about transparency, representation, and accountability in government.
Then the senator's office has only shared 2 so-called proof-of-life images. Late last week, his office released a statement announcing he would be discharged from a rehab facility. Scott Jennings spoke to Senator McConnell earlier today. Scott, first of all, we do wish the senator a speedy recovery. How is he doing, and what did the senator tell you?
Well, he seemed to be doing a lot better. He left the rehab facility several days ago, and he's been recovering at home. And I could tell, I talked to him early on and talked to him again today. I could tell being at home was better than being in the hospital, that's for sure. He told me he was doing this rehab at home. And I think their plan is to hopefully get him back to the Senate. It comes back into session September the 14th. And I know there's some issues that he cares about a lot. Farm Bill, NDAA, and some other issues. So based on what I heard today, it sounded like he was in an improving position, but we're still a month away from the Senate coming back into session.
So he's come back in September.
Yeah, I think that's their hope, is that he can get back to work. And by the way, this is the end of his term. He's not running again. There's an election in Kentucky in November. He'll be out of office come January. So this is the last few weeks of the Senate session of his term.
Do you just call him up directly on his phone, or does you call an aide and the aide hands it to, how does it work?
He called me directly from his phone today.
Okay.
Now you have to understand, I've known him since I was 16, 17 years old. So we've had a relationship for a long time. I worked on a lot of his campaigns over the years, so it's not unusual for us to chat. But in today's case, he was really up on the campaigns. He's a political operative at heart. We talked a lot about the Michigan Senate race. We talked about Maine a little bit, talked about just the map in general.
Pamela's questions to Scott Jennings are understandable because there is a clear distinction between respecting someone's medical privacy and expecting transparency from an elected official. Mitch McConnell is still a sitting senator representing millions of Kentuckians. Scott said he had spoken with McConnell personally and believed that the senator was recovering well. But there is an important detail. Scott has known McConnell for years and previously worked on his political campaigns. That makes his assessment different from hearing directly from McConnell himself. No one is suggesting that McConnell should release his medical records or explain every detail of his treatment. Even a short interview, recorded message, or more comprehensive statement from his office could reassure the public while allowing him to maintain his privacy. McConnell's previous health problems also explain why his current absence has attracted so much attention. Events do not tell us what his condition is today, but they make his prolonged absence more noticeable. There is also a serious issue involving representation. Kentucky cannot simply replace McConnell every time he is unable to participate. When he is absent and unable to vote, the state effectively has one less senator participating in important decisions involving legislation and nominations. Scott pointed out that McConnell has remained involved by communicating with senators, staff members, and other political figures. That is encouraging, but staying involved through phone calls is not exactly the same as being physically present in Washington and casting votes. The conversation also touches on the broader question of paid medical and family leave in America. The United States still does not provide a universal Federal guarantee of paid leave for private sector workers dealing with serious illness or caring for family members. While the Family and Medical Leave Act can protect eligible workers from losing their jobs during certain periods of leave, the time off is generally unpaid. That can create a huge difference between politicians and the financial stability and job security necessary to spend weeks recovering from a serious injury. Meanwhile, an average worker could face mounting bills and lost income while recovering from the same type of health crisis. Scott also criticized Governor Andy Beshear for turning McConnell's absence into a political issue. Perhaps Beshear does have political motivations, but questioning his intentions does not erase the larger issue. It is still worth discussing whether American workers should have greater financial protection when illness or injury prevents them from working.
Well, but as you said, you're his friend. But I mean, I think there's what I'm hearing from Governor Beshear, and I'm just wondering how you view that. Is why isn't he calling in to even one that he would consider friendly, like Fox News? I mean, I guess that's the prevailing question that
or put on a video.
Yeah, my view of him and frankly my belief about males of that generation is that they're intensely private, to be honest. He's always been a little private about his own personal health care. He's a polio survivor, and one of the issues that he's had over time is weakness in his legs. I think that's part of what's going on here and part of the conditioning that he's having to go through right now. But I think men of that generation, frankly, are just pretty private about it.
And to be honest, your radio show. Have you asked him to call into your radio show?
I hope that he will call into my radio show. I've had him on before, and I'm hoping to have him on as we get closer to when the Senate.
Does he know about all of the brouhaha around this?
Is he aware of the whole swirl?
He told me today. He said it was like, I know this is unusual circumstances. I'm sitting here. The doctors tell me I don't have any life-threatening issues. It must seem rather strange. So yeah, I got the feeling he's somewhat aware of it, and frankly, somewhat frustrated by it.
Is he? You always say he's still doing the work. Of the senator. I mean, is he taking calls from constituents? Is he having constituents come to meet with them? I mean, because he hasn't voted since June.
Yeah, I know he's had several meetings with different kinds of people. I know when the Senate was in last week, he had talked to Senator Bozeman of Arkansas about the Farm Bill. I know he had talked to Senator Curtis in Utah about preservation of the filibuster. So I know he was doing sort of senatorial work on the phones as the Senate was winding up its previous session. And I know he's had a few other visitors to come by and talk to him about other issues. And I know he's routinely meeting with staff. I do think this Farm Bill and NDAA stuff coming up is pretty important.
I just have to ask this because I know Americans have been asking this. He has voted against paid sick and family leave over the years. And I just wonder if you think this will change his point of view. Now been out, 7-8 weeks?
Yeah, I really have no idea. We didn't.
Do you
we
think
didn't
it
talk
should?
about that today.
I mean, just thinking about it, he's voted against it in the past.
I don't know. I'll be honest. I hadn't contemplated how an 84-year-old's recovery from a fall would affect his views about his previous voting record. But
politics.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, this Beshear thing amuses quite a few of us in McConnell world. McConnell beat Andy Beshear's dad like a drum in 1996. I don't think the Beshears have gotten over it. Andy Beshear spends a heck of a lot of time out of Kentucky and away from the governor's office himself right now, getting ready for his 9th place finish in South Carolina. So it's a little bit craven to me to see Andy Beshear out there running around, turning this into a political issue when it's pretty simple. An 84-year-old man who's at the end of his term had a health issue. He's recovering from it. He's trying to get back to work. I expect he will get back to work. He got elected by the people of Kentucky to serve a full term, and based on what I heard today, that's what he intends to do.
And like I said in the beginning, we hope that he has a speedy.
The bigger question is whether politicians who experience long recovery periods themselves gain a deeper understanding of why millions of ordinary Americans need stronger protections when illness or injury keeps them away from work. The reality is that the United States still stands apart from many wealthy nations because there is no universal federal program guaranteeing paid family and medical leave for private sector workers. While the Family and Medical Leave Act provides eligible employees with up to 12 weeks of job-protected leave in certain situations, that leave is generally unpaid, and many workers don't even qualify because of requirements related to their employer, length of employment, and other factors. That is why Pamela's question deserves serious consideration. Imagine a 60-year-old warehouse employee suffering a serious fall, spending time in the hospital, completing rehabilitation, and then needing several additional weeks at home to recover. They could face the same challenge of being medically unable to return to work, but without the financial stability and job security available to someone serving in the US Senate. Whether Andy Beshear has political motivations or is trying to benefit from the situation doesn't change the underlying issue. You can question his intentions while still acknowledging that America needs a meaningful discussion about protecting workers when serious health problems prevent them from working. At the same time, Mitch McConnell should absolutely be given the time his doctors believe he needs to recover, particularly considering his age. No. Reasonable person should want an 84-year-old senator pressured to return to Washington before he is physically ready. But that is precisely what makes this conversation important. If we believe every person deserves time to recover from a serious illness or injury without worrying about losing their livelihood, that principle should apply to ordinary workers just as much as it applies to the most powerful people in Washington. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more political analysis and commentary.